Hello, today we are in our final day of close reading. Sorry, wrong number. We're looking at the essential question of how do readers know what to believe? Number 4, what is literary text really about? And question number 7, how does a reader's purpose influence how the text should be read? Today we are close reading a final section of Sorry, Wrong Number. And within this section, we are gonna, for our first phase of reading, just like in our previous first phase of reading, focus on a quick and objective summary of the text, learning target number 5. Remember that summary should connect to the conflict. This part of the text is getting closer to the climax, but it's still part of the rising action elements, so it's still building that suspense. So make sure you focus on who are the characters within this section of the rising action, how do they address the conflict in this section of the rising action, and make sure the summary addresses the beginning, middle, and end, and it's objective, so it stays away from offering your opinion. So as we read this particular close read, we are going to look at how Duffy, the character, interacts with our main character, Mrs. Stevenson. Duffy is that police officer character within the piece. And again, so you're going to read it through the first time just to get the gist, to create a summary of what the text is about. So make sure it's objective. In phase 2 of the reading, we're going to focus on that area that we seem to have a lot of challenge with, and that's the area of contrasting the points of view. You see 2 distinct points of view within this particular section for Duffy and for Mrs. Stevenson. I want you to reread the excerpt that second time, focusing on the parts that show the contrast between Duffy and Mrs. Stevenson. Look for words. Look for maybe structural choices. We talked yesterday about the different features that a drama has. The author might not just use word choice, but they might also use different structural elements of a drama to really help convey that contrast. So look at both and highlight different things you notice that show a contrast between Mrs. Stevenson and Duffy, both with word choice and structure. After you do that, I want you to make sure that you answer the question by using one of the following. So we're looking at how the author, what specific words, what specific structural elements does the author use to contrast the character of Mrs. Stevenson with the character of the police officer Duffy. Please begin your answer with one of the following. I want you to begin your answer with the author uses, and then tell me what specific pieces, word choice he uses. Tell me what specific structural elements, that structure of a drama the author uses to contrast Duffy with Mrs. Stevenson, and then explain how that particular element you found does in fact show some sort of contrast. So you need to focus on what element, whether it's specific word choice or structural components, what is used by the author, that's the how part, to contrast Duffy from Mrs. Stevenson. By doing so, you will be checking out and answering to analyze how an author contrasts the points of view of different characters and narrators. Remember, we're focusing on the how. How means what parts or features. So what specific pieces of the structure help the author to show the differences between, in this case, Duffy and Mrs. Stevenson. In the final phase of reading this piece, we're going to look at, again, another area that seems to be very challenging for us, and that's just learning target number 6, to analyze how particular elements of a drama interact with each other. In this case, we're going to look at how the structure interacts with the character interactions. So we're going to look at how 2 characters interact, but also how the structure is used to influence the character interactions within the piece. So I want you to look at how different elements or different parts of the literature are connected here. This ties into what we've been talking about with analytical writing as well. So if we look at this question, we're focusing on 2 different literary skills. We're focusing on character and we're focusing on structure with stage directions. So make sure that you focus on those elements and answer this question, as well as cite evidence to look for the different elements of stage directions and how that does connect to and impact the character interactions of Duffy and Mrs. Stevenson. So go ahead and get started on this close read.